In the opulent chambers of Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister sat at his grand desk, the flickering candlelight casting long shadows across the room. The air was heavy with tension as Kevan Lannister stood nearby, his arms crossed, waiting silently as his brother read the letter that had just arrived. The wax seal bore the unmistakable marks of both House Baratheon and House Targaryen, a stag and a three-headed dragon. Tywin's sharp green eyes moved methodically across the parchment, his expression betraying nothing as he absorbed the contents. When he finished, he placed the letter down carefully, his fingers steepled as he leaned back in his chair. His silence was more unnerving to Kevan than any outburst could have been. "What does it say, Tywin?" Kevan asked cautiously. Tywin's voice was cold, calculated, and laced with quiet disdain. "Robert Baratheon and Daenerys Targaryen have joined forces, it seems. They demand my presence at Riverrun to bend the knee under threat of dragonfire." Kevan's eyes widened slightly, though he quickly composed himself. "Both of them? They've formed an alliance." "So it would appear," Tywin replied, his tone clipped. "The letter makes it clear that they see me as the final obstacle to uniting the realm against the threat in the north. They expect me to kneel, to swear fealty, and to abandon everything I've built." Kevan stepped closer, his concern evident. "And if you refuse, do they mean to bring their dragons against us?" Tywin picked up the letter again, his gaze lingering on the words. "They are explicit in their threat. Submit or face dragonfire." He let out a quiet, mirthless laugh. "It seems Robert and Daenerys have found common ground in their disdain for me." Kevan frowned, his voice low. "This is dangerous, Tywin. We've heard the reports. Varos's dragons are said to be larger than Balerion, and Daenerys's are no less deadly. If they come for Casterly Rock, we may not be able to hold." Tywin placed the letter back on the desk with deliberate precision. "I am well aware of the dragons, Kevan, but this is no mere threat of war. This is a maneuver to isolate us. They know that if we bend the knee, the realm will unite under their banners. If we refuse, we become the scapegoats, the reason the living cannot stand together against the dead." Kevan nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "They've placed us in an impossible position. Submission means the end of Lannister power, but defiance means destruction." Tywin's expression darkened, his mind calculating every possible outcome. "If I go to Riverrun, I will not kneel. To do so would invite weakness and rebellion from within my own ranks. But if I refuse entirely, it gives them justification to unleash their dragons." Kevan hesitated before asking, "Then what will you do?" Tywin stood, his imposing presence filling the room. "We will respond with dignity and strategy, Kevan. I will write to Robert and Daenerys, acknowledging their concerns but refusing their terms. I will offer a ceasefire on the condition that our forces are allowed to remain intact and that no harm comes to Casterly Rock." Kevan's brow furrowed. "And if they reject your offer?" Tywin's gaze was steely, unyielding. "Then we prepare for war as we always have. The Golden Company and the Slavers' forces from across the sea will strengthen our position. And if it comes to it, we will remind them that even dragons are not invincible." Kevan sighed, the weight of the moment pressing heavily upon him. "This is a dangerous game, Tywin. If the dragons strike, it will not be like any battle we've faced before." Tywin's lips curved into a faint, cold smile. "Every game is dangerous, Kevan, but I have no intention of losing. If Robert and Daenerys wish to test their alliance against the might of House Lannister, they will find us ready." As Tywin began drafting his response, the room fell into a tense silence. The stakes had never been higher, and the choices he made now would determine not only the fate of his house but the future of the realm itself. The great hall of Riverrun was filled with tension as Kevan Lannister, clad in the crimson and gold of House Lannister, entered the chamber. The banners of House Stark, Baratheon, and Targaryen hung prominently, a stark reminder of the alliance forged against the greater threat. Seated at the high table were Robert Baratheon, Daenerys Targaryen, and Eddard Stark, their presence commanding as Kevan approached. The room fell silent as Kevan bowed respectfully. "Your Grace," he said, addressing Robert first, then inclining his head to Daenerys and Ned. "I come as an emissary of my brother, Lord Tywin Lannister, to discuss the terms of peace and unity in facing the northern threat." Robert leaned forward, his broad frame imposing. "Your brother has kept us waiting, Lannister. I hope you've come with more than empty words." Kevin straightened, his tone measured but firm. Lord Tywin understands the gravity of the situation. While he has no love for this alliance, he recognizes the necessity of setting aside old grievances. He is prepared to agree to a ceasefire, provided our forces are allowed to remain intact and our lands undisturbed. Daenerys's violet eyes narrowed slightly, her tone regal but sharp. "And what of your contribution to the fight against the Night King? Words of peace will not stop the dead." Kevin turned to her, his expression serious. "House Lannister will do its part. I have been authorized to commit 25,000 men to the wall, to reinforce the Night's Watch and bolster the defenses of the north." A murmur ran through the room, the assembled lords exchanging cautious glances. Ned Stark spoke next, his voice calm but resolute. "The North will hold you to your word, Lord Kevin. Those men will be needed not just to defend the wall, but to fight alongside every banner raised against the dead." Kevin nodded. "I understand, Lord Stark. The Lannister forces will march under the command of the Night's Watch and any northern lords they are assigned to. We have no intention of undermining this alliance." Robert leaned back in his chair, letting out a deep sigh of relief. "Good. It's about damn time. The sooner your men are at the wall, the better." Daenerys's voice carried a note of warning. "And what of Tywin himself? Will he remain at Casterly Rock, or will he commit more to this cause?" Kevin's jaw tightened slightly. "Lord Tywin will remain in the west to ensure the security of our lands and maintain order. However, should the situation require it, I will ensure additional forces are made available." Robert slammed his hand on the table, his voice rising. "This is not a negotiation, Kevin. The dead don't care about Casterly Rock or Lannister pride. If your brother thinks he can sit this out while the rest of us bleed, he's mistaken." Kevin held his ground, his tone calm but firm. "My brother is not sitting this out, Your Grace. Sending 25,000 men is no small contribution, and I am here to ensure our commitment is honored." Ned's voice cut through the tension, steady and measured. "Then let it be so. The Lannister forces will march to the wall under the banner of unity. For now, the living must stand together, or we will all fall." Daenerys nodded in agreement, her tone softening slightly. "Let this be a beginning, Lord Kevin. The sins of the past cannot be undone, but the future depends on what we do now." Kevin inclined his head respectfully. "House Lannister will honor its word, Your Grace." Robert grunted, waving a hand dismissively. "Fine. Get your men moving, Kevin. The wall won't hold forever." As the meeting concluded, Kevin stepped back, his expression stoic but thoughtful. The ceasefire had been agreed upon, but the tension between the Lannisters and the rest of the realm was far from resolved. Still, for the moment, the living had taken a step toward unity, however fragile it might be. The Lannister banners would march north, and with them, the hope that even old enemies could stand together against the darkness. In the dimly lit war room of Dragonstone, Robert Baratheon leaned over the massive table that held the map of Westeros, his expression heavy with determination. Eddard Stark stood beside him, his face drawn with the weight of recent news. Around them, the murmur of activity echoed as their commanders and aides worked tirelessly to organize the effort against the looming threats. "We need to quicken the pace," Robert said, his voice gruff but resolute. "Over 100,000 men equipped with dragonglass weapons. It's a monumental task, but it's the only way we stand a chance. The Night King isn't waiting for us to get our affairs in order." Ned nodded, his tone steady. "The mines on Dragonstone are already being worked at full capacity. Blacksmiths from the north, the Riverlands, and even the Vale are being summoned to forge the weapons as quickly as possible. But even with every forge lit and every smith working day and night, it may not be enough." Robert slammed his fist on the table, rattling the markers on the map. Then we'll find more smiths, more hands to mine. Every able-bodied man, woman, and child who can hold a tool will contribute. This is survival, Ned. There's no room for half measures. As the two men spoke, Daenerys Targaryen and Varys stood a short distance away, their voices low as they whispered to one another. Daenerys's expression was conflicted, her violet eyes searching Varys's fiery gaze for reassurance. "They'll be safer in Old Valyria," Varys said, his tone calm but firm. "The Night King's reach grows stronger with each passing day. Your dragons are powerful, but they are not invulnerable. If he turns them, we lose one of our greatest advantages." Daenerys hesitated, her gaze shifting to the window where Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion rested atop the cliffs of Dragonstone. Their presence had been a source of strength and pride, but Varys's warnings had planted a seed of doubt. Finally, she nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Very well. They will return to Old Valyria for now. But when the time comes, they will fly again and they will be ready." Varys inclined his head in acknowledgement, his expression respectful. "A wise decision, Daenerys Stormborn. The fire they carry will be needed when the final battle comes." As their conversation concluded, a soldier entered the room, his armor marked with the sigil of House Baratheon. He approached Robert and Ned, bowing quickly before delivering his message. "Your Grace, my lord," the soldier began, his voice urgent. "Word has come from the Wall. The wildlings who were entering Westeros have stopped. Out of the 200,000 we expected, only 30,000 have crossed. There's no sign of the others." Robert frowned deeply, his frustration mounting. What in the seven hells is going on up there? The Night's Watch was supposed to ensure they crossed safely. If they're stuck beyond the Wall, they're as good as dead. The soldier hesitated before continuing. "There's more, Your Grace. A raven from Winterfell reports that Lord Stark's son, Bran, who had been missing for weeks, has returned. He was last seen at the Wall." Ned's head snapped up at the mention of Bran, his eyes wide with a mix of relief and concern. "Bran? He's returned." The soldier nodded. "Yes, my lord. The message says he's safe, but there's something strange. The Maester's letter says he speaks of visions, warnings about the Night King, and something about the old gods." Ned's face tightened, his thoughts racing. "Visions? Warnings? What has my son seen?" Robert placed a heavy hand on Ned's shoulder, his voice gruff but supportive. "Whatever it is, we'll deal with it, Ned. Bran's return could be a sign, or at least some piece of this bloody puzzle we're trying to put together." Daenerys and Varys, having overheard the exchange, stepped closer. Daenerys's tone was measured as she addressed them. "If your son has seen something, Lord Stark, it may be worth listening to. The old gods and the new often have a way of speaking through unexpected means." Varys added, his fiery gaze fixed on Ned. "The boy's visions may hold the key to understanding the Night King's plans. If his return coincides with the wildling's disappearance, it is no coincidence." Ned nodded, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his chest. "I will go to Winterfell and speak with Bran myself. If he knows something that can help us, we cannot afford to ignore it." Robert grunted, his focus returning to the map. "Fine, go to your boy, Ned, but make it quick. We've got a war to fight on too many fronts, and we need every man who knows what he's doing." As the group dispersed, the weight of the news settled over them. The mysteries surrounding the wildlings, Bran's visions, and the ever-looming threat of the Night King only deepened. Time was slipping away, and the living had precious little of it to prepare for what was to come.